Hey guys, how's it going? Facebook Live, Dave and Dujanovic. I forgot what we called it, Deb. After hours, overtime. Did we have a good name for it? FaceTime after the show, whatever
If
it
you
is.
if you missed the show today from 9 to noon, you can tune in Monday. We're back on the air from 9 to noon Monday through Thursday on KSL News Radio. But right now, we're going to sound off on school fees. First, let's talk about the school fees that you're paying for your kids if they're in middle school or high school. They're enrolled in public school. Dave knows all about it because he has 3 kids right now enrolled in public schools in Utah. What kind of fees do you pay? Didn't you have a list, a breakdown of the different fees you have to pay, Dave?
Uh, Hundreds of dollars every year. And my kids aren't in college yet. So this is K through 12. There's a standard, I think, $84 mandatory fee, but there are a million fees. There's a $5 locker rental fee. There's a $5 parking decal. There's a $10 change of class fee. I mean, basically, everywhere I turn, there's another fee. And
Uh,
it ends up being hundreds of dollars every year.
So before we go any further, let's let our listeners know that there's a proposal on Capitol Hill. Of course, the legislative session in session for the next couple of legislature in session for the next couple of weeks up on Capitol Hill. And one of the proposals that we've been talking about on the show is this idea of eliminating school fees for 7th through 12th graders. And instead of nickel and diming dads like Dave, what the legislature would do if this proposal gets through is take $55 million all at once, and then that would cover curricular fees for classroom extras like the graphing calculator you might need. Maybe there's some lab equipment that you get a fee for. Dave, I want to listen to some of what Representative Adam Robertson, who is sponsoring this legislation, told us during the show this week when he called the Dave and Dujanovic show on KSL News Radio.
Oh, I missed the button. Hang on just a sec. I got it. It's coming up. Here it is.
First and foremost, as a priority, take care of the curricular activities, your course. What we would have called in the past writing, reading, arithmetic, our biology, our sciences. And the things that are extra are really, truly extra. And I think we have to be careful. If we begin to pay for extracurricular and all extracurricular, we have to decide, well, what limits?
What limits is right. I get it. You've got to draw a line at some point. You fund schools. If they want to do other stuff, then you start charging. I get it. But what has happened, I downloaded the fee schedule for Davis School District. It's actually the school district that I grew up in. I attended all my schools were in the Davis School District when I was a kid. Now my kids go there. It was 4.5 pages of fees. Like there was a fee for everything. Now you don't participate in everything, but there was a fee for just about everything.
And these come as a surprise often at the beginning of school year for parents because you get that bill as you're registering your child for that school year, and you're finalizing their schedule. So let's ask our listeners and our viewers now here on Facebook to weigh in. Let's ask the question: is it time to do away with the nickel and diming of school fees? Would you rather just have lawmakers take one lump sum of taxpayer money, that $55 million, and put it toward paying for classroom fees that you get charged with public school isn't really free in Utah if you're charging parents fees. So would you rather have lawmakers just pay the tab out of taxpayer funds for those school fees instead of passing the costs on to individual families? What's your take on that, Dave?
Well, it's problematic in a few ways. Number one, I think the schools genuinely need the money. They need the money from fees to run day-to-day operations, quite frankly. So you take all of those away. The legislature says, we're going to replace some of that, but I don't know if they're going to replace all of it. I don't know if all the fees that schools are relying on right now are going to be made up by the legislature, because as soon as you ask the legislature for money, you're going to have to justify it. Again, I don't have a problem with them justifying the money they spend, but it will be a massive change because, listen, you get used to that money coming in, you live within those means. So you start cutting that off, it's going to be very, very difficult for schools. Good for parents, maybe, but it's going to be extremely difficult for schools.
Caitlin, let's put Ike's comment on the screen. He's just posted a comment on our Facebook Live here. New term. So right now I owe $30 for my 10th grade son's food class fees and $15 for my 8th graders' clothing class fees. Ooh, I hope they're making some awesome clothes in that clothing class, Ike. 100% in favor of eliminating these types of fees. I agree with you, Ike, and I'll tell you why. Because I think when you send a fee to a parent, it may make kids think twice, and parents also think twice by enrolling their kids, enrolling their kids in these enriching type classes. I think it's awesome that kids are taking a cooking class or learning how to sew if they're taking a clothing class, or maybe it's a designer type of clothing class. Some of these types of classes keep kids excited about school because they could be bored by math, or maybe they're struggling in other classes, but they look forward to, their fourth period because they get to go and sew something or design something. So you start nickel and diming parents for fees. Granted, there are fee waivers. I do know that. But still, when there's a dollar figure attached to a class, I don't think that's right. And I think we need to reconsider how we're structuring these fees, not passing them on to the parents, but absorbing them as taxpayers.
Part of the responsibility of having a class or developing a class is funding the class. If you can't fund the class, then you can't have the class. It's pretty simple. So if the principal or superintendent needs to lobby for that class, if it's important for that school, great. Then you need to fund that class. I remember my senior year, they decided to start up a guitar class. That was a class that I was really interested in. But obviously, they weren't able to supply a guitar for everybody. That would be extremely expensive. But it was like, hey, if you can bring your guitar, well, that was fine. I had a guitar. But what about those people that wanted to play guitar? There was no option. It was like, oh, that sounds like a great class, but I don't have a guitar, not even a rental one. I don't have anything. So even though I like the class, I see why it's difficult. You're asking someone to go find one, borrow one, buy one. And it just gets very expensive, especially if you have several kids in school at the same time.
That's what is it Liliandra? That's what you're experiencing. I feel you. You have 4 kids. You have 4 kids in middle school and high school, and each kid is about $65 registration fee. Okay, we'll do the math on that. That's a couple $100s. This doesn't include a $10 art fee, $10 calculator fee, $30 for a tech class, $100 if it's an AP class for an AP test. I'm done with fees. I'm so sorry. That's expensive. An AP class, so it's an advanced class, and then you have to spend $100 for the test. You want to reward kids for excelling, not punish their parents' pocketbooks because their child is excelling. I can see where you're coming from. That is a lot of money. It probably ends up costing you at least $1,000, maybe more dollars per year to send your kids to public school. And it seems like it's, like I said, time to change the way we think about these fees, Dave.
AP tests are a great example because there are kids that are really ambitious. It might take 2 or 3 AP classes in a year. So that's $300. If you don't pass it, you don't get the AP credit. Now, is it cheaper than a credit you would get in college? Yes, no question. Is it a good deal? Yeah, you got to pass the test. I get that. But there's still a reality here. We're asking kids to take harder classes, more studying, much more difficult. And by the way, it's going to be another $100. This is on top of, again, the mandatory fees. What if your kids play sports? There's a $70 participation fee. This is an extracurricular, but it's still the reality of what parents are dealing with. I haven't even done the math, but I just did some quick calculations in my head. Last year when I had a senior in high school, or a couple years ago, I was well over $800 in fees. And how many families out there right now are saving up like they would a Christmas budget, saying, okay, we got to save up $800 for fees. We have a budget in the state of Utah that is massive. We spend more money on education than anything else, everything else combined, right? So it's not like we're not funding education. But maybe we need to go just a little bit further.
Yeah. Shout out to Brittany for watching. Bernice, thanks for tuning in. Danny, thank you so much. Please leave us some comments. What do you feel about school fees? In a moment, I'll revisit what we're talking about in case you're just tuning in. Cheryl, thank you so much. Linda, we hope you also, Gwendy, hope you also watch the show or listen to the show throughout the week, the Dave and Dujanovic Show on 102.7 FM. You can also ask Alexa to play KSL News Radio. We're on from 9 to noon, Monday through Thursday on KSL News Radio. And we cover really important topics to your family. This one happens to be about school fees and eliminating the bill that parents are getting at the beginning of each semester to send their kids to classes at public schools. Lawmaker Adam Robertson joined the show this week to talk about his proposal on the Hill to take away the burden of curricular fees, which means the classroom fees that you're paying for. But this would not eliminate, as Dave just talked about, like band fees or guitar fees. Those are extracurricular types of classes that would not be covered. Things like band and baseball, those fees would not be covered. And Dave, when we were talking about this on the show this week, you said to rent a viola for your daughter when she wanted to start playing in 7th grade. I believe you said it was about $85 or $95 to rent it, but you were convinced to go buy one. So that would not, however, be covered even if this bill passes. So I want to make it clear that this doesn't cover all fees. It's just those classroom fees. But that's a lot of money, though, if your kids are participating in band.
Well, it was incredible. There was a presentation trying to recruit kids to play in the orchestra. I think this was 7th grade for my daughter. And there's a lot of really good research, and there's a lot of good reasons to play an instrument and to play a classical instrument in the orchestra, right? I was totally convinced. I get it. I understand it. But again, they're like, okay, now you can rent something. You can rent, we'll provide it. And it can be up to $95. That's kind of the cap.
Okay.
You can't charge more than $95. If you get an old viola, yeah, it's probably $30, whatever it might be. But we really felt the pressure, and we were told straight up, don't get, you're setting your kid up to fail. Don't rent, buy one, make the investment. So we did, and we spent, I don't know, $500-600 on a viola. We paid $30 a month for, I don't know, forever. But again, that is a financial investment. There's a really good reason to have an orchestra. There's a really good reason to learn an instrument. But that's a lot of money. And again, this is just one of the many, many fees that are out there.
Maybe it'd be a little less of a sting if you were paying the classroom fees too on top of the extracurricular fees. But this was a small step they said that they're taking now. It's the first step they're taking on the Hill. We don't know if this is going to pass yet. We're watching it to see what happens to it. But it only includes the curricular fees, not the extracurricular fees. Caitlin, I see we have a few more comments. Let's put Colette's comment on the screen here for our viewers to see what Colette is asking about this proposal on the Hill. Colette says, what about 6th graders? I paid school fees for my 6th graders this year. Colette, I don't believe that this bill, at least in the form that we were discussing earlier this week, of course this could change, includes 6th graders. I think these fees include 7th through 12th graders, and the total amount that they're willing to allocate this year is $55 million. But we will check on that and make sure we comment back to you later if we find out that that's not accurate at this point.
It should be K through 12.
Is that something we could check into, Caitlin, real quick? And my producers,
our producers
right over there.
Maybe right.
I think it's 7 through 12, but it may be K through 12. She's checking on it right now, and then she'll comment back in a moment.
but again, this does bring up another really good conversation piece. What is a fee? And we talked to the state auditor, John Dougal, John Frugal Dougal, has been harping on this thing for years on in higher education fees, middle school, high schools, elementary schools. And this is his argument. This is his frustration. And when he writes his reports and does his audits, he said the problem with fees right now is we're replacing taxes with the word fees, because taxes is kind of a 4-letter word. But a fee, everyone, it's a fee. We can just push that one through. A fee, by definition, is, and this is the legal definition that John Dougal was saying, it is, I give you money in return for a good or a service. So every single fee in school, you should be able to point to and say, this is what I'm receiving. This is the good I'm receiving, or this is the service that I'm receiving. It's not access to the service. It is the service itself.
Have you ever thought about just not letting your kids take a class because there's a fee attached to it?
Oh,
And by the way, Caitlin fact checked us on that. It is 7th through 12th graders that this would impact. So, Colette, sorry, it's not quite yet to 6th grade, but we can ask the representative next week where things stand with his bill to see if he's expanded it at all. So, Dave, so what I said was, have you ever considered not having your child take a class like band or join a sport because there's a fee? I have told I told my son he couldn't play football. He was already playing baseball, which was so expensive. Baseball was very expensive when he played, and I'm sure it's more expensive now. I mean, he's been graduated from high school for 5 or 6 years now. My gosh, has it been that long? It's 6 years. Anyway, but he also wanted to potentially play football, and I said we can't afford it. We just can't afford it. So he never played football. I just thought there were some other issues with the sport too, like concussions. I was a little concerned about, but the expense of these sports, and when you start piling on 2 and 3 and 4 kids into that budget, and then all the travel time involved for the kids and the parents, I told my son, you can't play football. I know for a fact from friends that I did talk to who had their kids playing, their sons playing football, it was so expensive to play football for high school.
Well, what happens with the extracurricular activities is they have to do fundraisers. I'm a high school softball coach, and I can tell you, we get nothing. I mean, practically speaking, I think we get $1,000 or $1,500 from the school to run a softball program for months with 20 girls. Like $1,000 gets eaten up, it evaporates almost immediately. So we do fundraisers where we raise thousands and thousands of dollars to just be able to do the basics, to just run a basic softball program. And that is a burden. And same thing with football and baseball. Don't even get me started on cheer and drill. I mean, folks, I know what you pay. It is obscene. And what it does is when you have these excessive fees, is it becomes prohibitive. Your kids can't do it. They can't afford to do it. So they lose out on these opportunities. We should scale back. We should pare down what we're offering in schools, and we should fund them. We should fund them.
So what do you fund? Athletics, you fund band. So then this brings me to the next conversation. The state legislature, the Senate approved $160 million income tax cut, which you do the math for families making $70,000 a year, a family of 4 making $70,000. That tax cut would amount to $2 a week or $8 a month. So do you take that instead of, this is just hypothetical, Senate's already passed it, House looks like they're probably going to pass it too and tack on additional money to that for people who collect Social Security and low income families as well. So it might expand. But let's just say we took that, instead of giving Utahns an income tax cut, you take that $160 million and you say all fees be gone at high school and middle school level. So not only your curricular fees, but your extracurricular fees. No more Now you have to stay within a budget, coaches, but no more making these kids run around and do fundraisers. No more.
We do so many fundraisers. One of the things we do is we serve food at University of Utah football games. We run sessions like that.
It's great. It's a lot, right? It's good. Some of it is public. It's kind of giving back to the community. We did some of that too. My kids went to
straight money grab.
Yeah, right. But yeah, you're looking at so many fundraisers that they have to do. I remember there were kids on the team that just they had a hard time collecting the money because it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Well, and I will say this: if there's a kid that can't afford it, we pay for it with our fundraising. So that is what a lot of coaches do. If a kid is struggling financially,
well, that wasn't the experience that I had. I ended up paying for another child out of my own pocket because he was going to be shut out of going on the road trip with the team, and I was like, that's not going to happen. This child has been playing with my son for years and years and years, and we love all of the players, and so my husband and I decided to make the payment on his behalf. The coach didn't step up and do it,
and not everyone does it. I get it. It's what we do, but there is a pressure. There's a pressure to come up with it, to come up with that money and to pay it. Probably pay.
Yeah, he wasn't able to go if he didn't pay it. That was the thing that was so insane to me. And that's why I was just thinking about this kind of out loud. If you take all that money, we're going to get back, which is $2 a week. I know some families can use that money. A lot of families would look at that and say, this is just not really going to help my budget. But it would be helpful if fees were eliminated at the 7th grade, 8th, 9th, 10th through 12th grade level. And we just didn't have to worry about that. And then to Colette's issue, I don't know if you're still watching Colette, we start going down to 6th grade and 5th grade for whatever fees that those parents are having to pay in the years ahead. I personally think that would go a long way to helping children stay more involved in school activities and not putting the pressure on parents to come up with hundreds of dollars for their kids to play in the band or play baseball or play football. It's just
part of the problem, though. Part of the problem with this is, say you take that $150 million and you throw, where did that $150 million come from? It was a surplus. That's where that.
Yeah, it has to be ongoing.
This is an ongoing expense.
That's a good point.
And anytime you talk about an ongoing expense of $150 million, I mean, that's nothing to laugh at. That is real money. You know, it's $1 billion over 10 years. So, I don't want legislators to just keep throwing money at the problem. I don't think that is always the answer. If we have too many programs, if we have too many classes, then scale back. Then don't offer them at your school. If you can't afford to fund this class, then you can't have that class. You're losing a richer, fuller experience in the school, then so be it. That's just the way it is. You got to live within your means. But we can't just keep expanding programs, sports, groups, and just saying, oh, well, we'll just keep tacking on fee after fee after fee.
I also wanted to talk about college fees because I'm faced with that right now. The kids have all graduated from high school and moved on to college. But I have an idea, Dave. I have an idea. Instead of diving into that meaty issue and topic right now and breaking down what the fees are over and above tuition that I'm paying, and all the students are paying. It's not just for my daughter at the University of Utah and other universities and colleges across Utah. Let's save that discussion for next week, and maybe we can get our state auditor, John Dougal, who's really been diving into fees and why they're charged and his concerns about how much parents are being charged and is there enough transparency behind these fees, what these fees are going toward. Let's see if we can get him to pen our listeners, our Facebook viewers in on his calendar for next week. He can join us on the Facebook Live next week, and he can help walk our listeners through their questions about fees as well. How's that? And then I'll also bring my daughter Katie's tuition bill and fee bill with me, and we'll put it up on the screen, and you guys can see what I'm going through with her and other students are going through. Is that a good deal?
I love this idea. Let me just say one little thing.
Please.
As much as I want to complain about my high school, junior high, and elementary school fees, when I saw what your Katie's paying in fees, I feel like I just need to shut my mouth.
I know, right?
Like, because I have
Oh, yeah.
nothing to complain about when it
Yeah.
comes to higher ed. Higher ed blows all the fee conversation out of the water.
Yeah.
Offensive.
Now, I'll just give you a hint. If she was going there for 6 years, and a lot, you kind of go, haha, 6 years. A lot, actually, that's becoming
Pretty
more
close
and
to
more.
average.
Yeah, average. She would end up paying $1,000 over those 6 years in just an athletic fee every semester, and she's not an athlete.
Does
She
she
doesn't
go
go
to
to
games?
not very many. And then she's got a fine arts fee as well. She's a pre-med student, so that was a big question mark. And then there's a student success fee she pays. This is all over and above tuition, and it sent our bill skyrocketing. I'll give you a hint: an additional $1,000 just for this semester. If you missed the show this week and you want to hear that discussion, you can podcast that on our shows. You know, we upload our discussions every single day on your favorite podcast platform. Go listen to that and the breakdown of Katie's school fees at the University of Utah. And then next week, let's get the state auditor to join us, Dave, on a Facebook Live so he can really break down his concerns about all these ballooning fees.
Your final bill with fees,
49.
25%
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
final cost was fees.
Yeah.
25%.
Just about 25% of that. Well, and she's not even taking a full load. She's taking, I think, 3 classes and with the one that has a lab. So my tuition bill was $3,900, or her tuition bill was $3,900, and then you tack on another little more than $1,000 in fees. That's not even full load. That is 3 classes.
I'm out.
All right. Have a good weekend.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.